The original name of this what if was What If Naruto Had Sage Mode. It was in our recommended videos, and as I looked at it, I was, well, puzzled because, well, Naruto did have Sage Mode. Then, the more I thought about it, I began to wonder what the user who proposed this meant. Then I began to think that maybe it meant that he always had Sage Mode. Despite the title seeming so elementary, I came to realize that this video idea was actually a lot deeper than it seemed, and despite my hesitation, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I love Sage Mode, almost as much as I love dojutsu, and the moment it popped into my mind what the user meant, my mind went bonkers with ideas for this. I don't remember who submitted this idea, but if you're watching this, thanks. I hope you enjoy it. This video is dedicated to you. Cheers. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you are subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. For generations, we have had a prophecy that the world would be brought to peace by one young man, trained by a sage. The specifics of that prophecy I have never truly understood, not until that day 12 years ago. I was simply waiting and watching. A bit of a ruckus was happening in Konoha, a village very near and dear to me. My toads had gone out to fight and to protect the village, but the battle was turning sour. That was when my boys returned to me, and they weren't alone. Gamamaru sat there, his face twisted in concern. He could feel the battle from very far away. So many sages in one place, each one of their emotional states affecting the way they made use of senjutsu. He didn't need his crystal ball to see it, he just knew. That was when there was a sudden reverse summoning back to Mount Myoboku. A few of the Toad warriors returned from battle, many wounded, but others seemingly fine. To those who were fine, Gamamaru asked them straight, "What are you doing here? Konoha needs as much help as they can get."
"We know that, Great Elder," Gamabunta said, "but the Hokage, Minato Namikaze, is dead."
Gamamaru felt his heart break. "No, not Minato. He was one of my favorite pupils."
"Not only that, but we found his wife. She's here with us."
Gamamaru, despite his age, was already out of his seat. "Where is she?" One of the Toads brought her forward.
"She's pregnant, but she's hurt really badly. I think she's going into labor," Gamabunta said.
Gamamaru called for Shima. "Shima!" A purple and cream-colored toad entered the room. "Yes, Great Elder." Gamamaru then spoke. "Lady Kushina is about to have a baby, and she's severely wounded. I need you and Fukasaku to take care of her." "Fukasaku isn't here right now," Shima said. "He's helping Jiraiya boy." Gamamaru seemed distraught. "Do you think you can handle it alone?" he asked. "I have a few toads back here that can help me." Gamamaru approved. He then had the toads take Kushina back with Shima. He then turned to Gamabunta. "Now tell me, is Konoha okay?" Shima led Kushina and the others back with her, deeper into the mountain near where they had clean, fresh water. It was warm there, so they were sure it would be a safe spot for Kushina and her expected child. As they laid Kushina down, Shima called for some of the other frogs. They came closer in shock. "Is that Lady Kushina?" some of them asked. Shima nodded. "She's hurt, and she's about to have a baby, too. I need all hands on deck." The toads cleaned themselves up and came over to help Kushina. As they got prepared, Shima came to Kushina's side and looked over her wounds. There were many, and they were grievous. Shima did the best she could. She found some of the special healing oils they produced there and began to place some into her wounds. Kushina seemed slightly out of it by this time. Shima shook her. Kushina, are you still with me?" she asked. "Listen to me, honey. You gotta stay awake." "Yeah." Kushina let out an agreement as her drowsiness began to take over. "Kushina, think back. Think back to when we first met. Tell me the story." I was freshly married, and Minato brought you here for training as well, certain that it would help you control your Ninetales," Shima said. Kushina smiled a bit. "That was fun." "It'll be fun again, doll. You just gotta keep yourself awake, okay?" Shima got low, ready to help deliver the baby. "You were a natural, Kushina. I've never seen a human pick up Sage Mode like you and your husband did." Kushina began to cry. Minato." Shima felt so bad. As she began to deliver the baby, Kushina screamed in anguish. She cried, but the only word on her lips as she pushed out the baby was Minato, the man who was set to help raise the baby, who was supposed to be here for the delivery, the man she would not see again in this life. It was everything the toads around could do to keep from crying. As the baby was fully delivered, Shima took it up into her arms and swallowed it. It was a boy. Shima walked over. Kushina, look, you have a baby boy." Kushina looked over at her weakly. Shima's face showed sorrow on it. Kushina, you have something to live for. This baby needs you. You have to be there for it. Kushina was still crying, though her face hardly showed it any further. The tears ran from her eyes, but she looked like she was about to fall asleep. Kushina, please, Shima said. Kushina reached out her hand to stroke the baby's head. My Naruto. Her hand hit the ground. As the baby cried in her arms, Shima couldn't help but cry as well, knowing that the little baby was orphaned, having lost both its mother and its father. Gamamaru sat there in his chair, thinking about the events that transpired. The war had taken a drastic turn, and now the cards were slowly stacking against the Gamma Sennin. As silence fell over the mountain, only a single cry could be heard. An infant now alone in a cruel world. A fitting reminder to the whole mountain what it had lost.
Naruto, this is the last time I'm gonna tell you to get up.
His eyes shot open. Stumbling out of his bed, he raced downstairs where he sat down by the table.
Sorry, Ma. Had a late night last night.
Shima looked at him skeptically. Out chasing fireflies with Gamakichi and Gamatatsu again? Shima asked.
Lay off him, Ma. He's just a tadpole,
Fukasaku said as he read his newspaper. Shima let off a sigh.
I just want him to make something of himself one day. He won't ever do that if he just lazes about in bed all day and parties all night. Ma, he's 12. Besides, if he stays and lives here with us for the rest of his life, who's that gonna hurt?
Naruto just sat there with a smile on his face, watching his parents have their daily, scheduled breakfast spat. Disregarding the squabble, Shima brought him his food, a plate covered in grubs, worms, and various types of bugs.
Dig in.
Itadakimasu, Naruto said as he began shoveling the still squirming creatures into his mouth.
At least he has a healthy appetite, Shima said.
Fukasaku let off a hearty laugh. As Naruto blinked, his orange toad-slit eyes and that slight pigmentation around them made it hard to tell the difference between him and the other residents. Shima couldn't help but smile as she thought about it. Naruto never did need to be taught how to utilize senjutsu. From the womb, he seemed capable of it. Ever since he was a toddler, he displayed the markings of a perfect sage, something that hadn't been seen ever from a human. It was the great Toad Sage's belief that Naruto might have been the child of prophecy, and that he would one day bring peace to the world. Peace was something that the world truly needed. But to be honest, Shima wasn't sure if she could let him go. Fukasaku and Shima never had any children of their own. Shima had always felt ashamed of that, feeling like she was less of a wife because of it, and Fukasaku told her not to worry as it wasn't either of their fault. It just wasn't the plan for them. Shima had always wondered why it wasn't the plan though, and now that Naruto was in her life, it finally made sense.
It wasn't the plan that we had any pollywogs of our own because we were supposed to take care of the pollywog of a good friend.
That thought brought her peace, joy, and comfort. As Naruto finished eating, he stood up, downed his juice, and headed out.
I'm gonna go hang out with Gamakichi and Gamatatsu, he said as he ran off.
I just don't think he's ready, Gamamaru said. Standing before him was a white-haired man wearing a red haori. The man sighed.
I know you don't want us to involve him in anything before you're sure, but this is a lot bigger than any one of us. He's needed. If he's truly the child of prophecy you spoke of, then he needs to be trained. He'll be instrumental in this war.
Gamamaru thought about it, his fingers tapping nervously against the arm of his chair.
I know. I just don't know if he's ready, Jiraiya boy.
Jiraiya looked half ready to rip his hair out.
Great sage, you were the one who had the dream. The prophecy is yours. If you foretold it, then why the hell aren't you letting me do it? It's already fated to happen anyway.
That's not how it works, Jiraiya boy. Just because I foretold something would happen doesn't mean it's set in stone. Fate is fickle, and things can be easily misinterpreted. If you involve him now, he could die. And if he dies, then yes, the world will know peace. When there's no humans left in the world. Why do you think we haven't thrown the towel in and started celebrating? What do you think would happen if I pulled back every toad back to Mount Myoboku? We'd get overrun, swept. Regardless of the prophecy, things can still go wrong. I'm not willing to bet the future of your people on it. Not yet. Jiraiya sighed.
Well, you better make up your mind soon, great sage. The war will be lost soon enough.
Jiraiya began to walk away. Where are you going? Gamamaru asked.
To get something to eat. Something's got to replace this blood I've been shedding for you.
As Jiraiya walked deeper, he waved at some of the toads he had known since his own childhood. There had been a time when Jiraiya was also believed to be the child of prophecy. Abandoned and alone, he was brought to Mount Myoboku by the toads, but it became apparent that he was not the child spoken of by Gamamaru. The great elder foretold that the child of prophecy would be a perfect sage, and Jiraiya was far from that. He was an imperfect sage. He still developed webbed feet when he used Sage Mode, but when he heard about Naruto, especially considering he was a perfect sage from infancy, it was clear and obvious that the child of prophecy spoken of was him. Stopping by a little toad restaurant, he would sit and wait for his grub. Literally. He ordered a bowl of grubs. They, as well as a bottle of sake, were brought to the table. Jiraiya began to pop them back like peanuts. Chasing them with some of the potent toad oil sake, he just watched the area around him. He loved returning to Mount Myoboku. It was like a second home to him. The scenery was so beautiful. It was serene, unblemished and pure. Hidden, available only to those worthy, Mount Myoboku was one of the areas that survived the industrialization age about 500 years back. During that time, technology increased and mankind grew rich, but their industry and way of life slowly began to destroy the environment. It brought on the increase of global temperatures, which raised sea levels and flooded out areas close to sea level. Beyond that, smog and the extinction of various species sensitive to the changes of nature led to a global decline in resources, life expectancy, and livable land. That was what led to the war. Mankind had declared war on nature, and now nature was fighting back. It was tragic, especially considering that most who knew and partook in the tragedies that began to spoil the planet never even wanted it. Society moved in that direction, and going any other way became something very hard to do. Humanity had become dependent upon its bad habits, and so the custodians of God's green earth slowly watched their inheritance turn to brown. Not that humanity was without mercy. As their society collapsed, living with nature became the new fad. It was easy to do when they figured it out, and they made great strides in becoming more in tune with nature, but that didn't mean that the world had forgiven them. The war raged on, and though the toads were on humanity's side, things weren't looking great. As a human himself, Jiraiya couldn't help but lament what was happening to the world and to his people, but what more could he do? As he sat there watching the area around him, he saw Naruto and two toads playing near the river.
What can I do?
Jiraiya stood up and walked over.
Hey there, Naruto.
Naruto looked back.
Pervy Sage.
Jiraiya cringed upon hearing it.
What have I told you about calling me that?
Naruto scratched his head.
Sorry, I forgot.
Jiraiya looked at Gamakichi and Gamatatsu.
Hey boys, how you doing?
We're doing fine, Gamatatsu said in his happy, high-pitched voice he always had. This drew a smile from Jiraiya.
How's our dad?
Gamakichi asked.
Oh, he's busy. The fighting's tough, but I ain't never seen anyone as strong as your dad. I doubt we'd still be here without him. You boys should be proud.
The two toads offered up a smile. That was when Jiraiya spoke again.
Can I speak with Naruto? Alone?
Sure, the two toads said in unison. Naruto then walked over to Jiraiya.
What's up, Jiraiya Sage?
Jiraiya then spoke to Naruto.
You know, the war is happening. Everyone's still waiting on the Child of Prophecy.
Child of Prophecy? Naruto questioned. Jiraiya was shocked.
They still haven't told you?
Haven't told me what? Naruto asked. Jiraiya then begins to explain.
Gamamaru, the great Toad Sage, prophesied that the war would continue until the Child of Prophecy appeared. The Child of Prophecy would fight against the enemy and then bring peace to the world. It was said that the Child of Prophecy would be a human child raised on Mount Myoboku who was a perfect sage.
Naruto listened, but it still wasn't clicking.
The prophecy was about you, Naruto. You're a human and a perfect sage. Nobody had to teach you anything. You never acquired it. You were using senjutsu since you were an infant.
Naruto thought about it.
I haven't heard anything about no legend, Naruto said.
You think I'm lying to you about it? Jiraiya asked.
No, I'm just saying that I think I would have heard about something so important.
So you are calling me a liar, Jiraiya said.
No, I'm not. I didn't say that.
You didn't have to. Jiraiya turned around and began to walk away.
Wait, Jiraiya Sage, don't go.
Jiraiya turned around.
If I am some prophesized child, then why would they hide it from me? I'm just trying to figure that out.
Because they mean to protect you, Naruto. They're scared that the prophecy isn't airtight and will lead to the end of everything. Naruto still seemed like he wasn't quite so sure about things. Jiraiya sighed.
Naruto, will you follow me?
Naruto nodded. Jiraiya reverse summoned them. He took them back to Konoha. As soon as they got there, he could see that it was devastated.
Whoa, what is this?
Naruto asked. Jiraiya began to explain.
This is the result of the war, Naruto. Hundreds of years ago, man stood at the top of the food chain. With their technology, they built great things, but slowly, as their greed increased, their influence on the world grew grimmer and grimmer. They began killing off the ecosystem, which led to those in nature hating them. The sages.
Naruto looked back.
The sages? You mean we're fighting humans?
Jiraiya shook his head.
Well, no. At least not now. Mankind began to fall centuries ago as the snake, slug, and toad sages rose up to defend the nature that mankind was ruining. But about 200 or so years ago, as the sages finally gained the advantage, mankind finally surrendered. Their pride broken, they gave in to the sages. The toads, filled with mercy, spared them and began helping them rebuild. It was not our intent to destroy at all, but to restore balance. As sages, we feed off of nature energy, but in return, we defend nature. There's give and take to being a sage, Naruto. Our job was never to destroy mankind, but to pull them back into balance. When there was no more need for a war, we let go. The toads began to aid the humans, and the slugs eventually retreated back to their home in the forests. But the snakes...
Jiraiya looked down. Naruto followed his gaze. The remnants of the village were covered in human, toad, and snake tracks.
The snakes could never forgive the humans. Certain they would do it all over again, they said that it would be better off if humans didn't exist at all. They began going about killing every human settlement that they could. And we, the Toad Sages, we couldn't have that. So the 300-year war that ended with the defeat of humanity stretched out into a 500-year war to help humans survive.
If this is what the war's about, then what about the slugs? What side did they stand on? Naruto asked. Jiraiya began to explain.
The sages are themselves always in balance. Much like nature, the slugs have not taken a side. They remain neutral.
Naruto understood. Jiraiya continued.
Nearly 200 years ago, the human society began to reform and create order from chaos. This led to the creation of the 5 great nations, each with their own villages. Between them were smaller nations and smaller villages. These humans grew into new sages themselves. They fell in line with the Toad Way and were basically adopted as Toad Sages themselves. The world was finally back in balance, and that's when the war began again. This village was the shining jewel of humanity. The greatest sages lived here, and it was believed that this village would be the home to the next child of prophecy. But little over 12 years ago, the village was sacked by the snake sages. During that time, the 4th Hokage was killed, leaving his wife and unborn child to escape to Mount Myoboku.
As Naruto looked at the shattered face of Minato Namikaze on what was left of the Hokage monument, he finally understood the truth. I escaped to Mount Myoboku with my mother. Jiraiya nodded.
You did. Your mother, Kushina, was gravely wounded. She and her husband, Minato, were both great friends to the Toads. They were the first pupils I ever took on. They were powerful sages in their own right.
Jiraiya thought back on the moment.
I fought with your father during this battle. I watched him take on 3 great snakes at once and still come out on top. Only when he was overrun by Hydra did he fall, and he only fell because I couldn't get to him in time.
Hydra? Naruto asked. Jiraiya then began to explain.
Hydra was the snake sage's greatest warrior, a snake born with 9 heads. No venom in existence was as potent as that of Hydra. Your father was bitten 9 times, 1 for each head, and yet he still kept fighting. But even he couldn't survive that. He died that day, and your mother was gravely injured trying to protect you, the baby still in her womb. She was taken to Mount Myoboku, where she gave birth to you. Shima helped deliver you and promised to watch over you for the rest of her life until you were old enough to fulfill the prophecy.
Naruto was trying to unpack all of this baggage.
Surely you didn't think you were actually a toad, did you?
Jiraiya asked. I always had questions, but I never dwelled on it for too long. I always knew her as Ma and Pa as Pa.
She still is, Naruto. That doesn't change just because you're not actually a toad. Family isn't blood, it's bonds. Blood relatives can even become complete strangers if they don't have that bond.
Naruto understood, but this was a lot to take in.
If I'm this prophetic child, then why hasn't anyone told me? Why hasn't anyone tried to make me ready for the things ahead? I assume it's because they love you.
What? Naruto asked, trying to understand.
They love me, so they're just going to let the world burn?
Naruto asks. Jiraiya tries to come up with the right words to explain it.
They love you, Naruto. They don't want to see you get hurt. Sometimes love has a tendency to blind people to the truth. Gamamaru, Shima, Fukasaku, and all the toads on Mount Myoboku have convinced themselves that you're not ready because they don't want to send you to war. But because they're trying to keep you from me, I can't train you. And if I can't train you, you'll never be ready. At this rate, you'll never fulfill the prophecy because no one's going to let you.
But that's not right, Naruto said.
I know, Jiraiya responded, but I don't really have much of a say in it. I can't take you away from them, and Gamamaru isn't going to let me train you.
So then why did you bring me out here? Naruto asked.
I brought you here so you could see this, and so you could know the truth. You need to be the one to decide what to do with your life, whether you want to try and fulfill the prophecy or not. Your life is yours, and I think it's best that you decide.
At just about that time, toads holding spears appeared around them. Naruto was surprised. What are you doing? Put those spears down. One of the toads rushed over, took Naruto by the hand, and pulled him away. Naruto strained and fought to get free of their grasp, but he failed. Jiraiya stood there, hands up.
Surrender, Jiraiya, sage of Mount Myoboku.
Jiraiya smiled and shook his head.
My hands are already up.
Take him in, one of the other guards said. They got closer to him and put him in chains. From there, they proceeded to reverse summon them back to the mountain. As soon as they got there, Naruto was relinquished to the care of his parents. Shima jumped up and hugged him tightly.
Oh, Naruto, my little baby boy, I was so worried about you.
Why? Naruto asked, completely confused about how they could be nervous about Uncle Jiraiya taking him out for a little while. We were worried because we didn't know where he had taken you. Now come on, let's go home. I got some more grubs on the table for dinner. Stop, Ma, Naruto said as he pulled free of her grasp. She seemed shocked by this. What? Naruto turned around and ran after the toads that had taken Jiraiya. Jiraiya had been taken to see Gamamaru. The great toad sage sat in his chair, tapping the side of his cheek with the hand he was propped against. As soon as Jiraiya appeared, he shook his head. Jiraiya boy, why did you have to do that? Jiraiya was already at his wit's end.
Do what? Show the boy the truth? He's the child of prophecy. Even if that scares you, he has to know.
You're going to entrust the whole war to a 12-year-old? You're not even going to let him grow into his prime before you send him out to fight. You're going to take him before he can truly be his strongest? Gamamaru asked.
You senile old prune. I'm not taking him out to war today. I'm beginning his training, something you've neglected to do.
Because he's not ready.
Because you love him too much,
Jiraiya shouted. The entire court went silent. Jiraiya continued.
I know how you feel, Gamamaru. I know. You love the boy. You're scared that if you send him out to war, he'll never come home.
That's not...
It is,
Jiraiya said.
You thought Minato was the child of prophecy too. He was born in your house, raised by you, just as Naruto is by Fukusaku and Shima. You don't want to lose a child again. You can't lose a child again, or so you feel. But never forget, Minato was just as much my son as he was yours. You think it didn't hurt me? You had to hear about his death. I watched it. I was there, watching him face the Hydra alone, unable to help. I was the one who buried him. I gave that boy years of my life. For years, we lived and died together on the battlefield. I trained him. I loved him as much as you did, but I'm not going to use him as an excuse to not train Naruto. The longer we wait, the more other toads and humans are going to die. I know you don't want that.
Then what do you suppose I do? Gamamaru asked.
Trust that your vision was true, that Naruto is going to bring peace.
And if he dies too? Gamamaru asks.
He won't die.
But if he does, Gamamaru insisted. Jiraiya looked down.
Then I'll spill my guts right here in front of you. I'll kneel down and commit harakiri. I'm literally betting my life on the fact that I think Naruto's ready. Ready to learn. Ready to fulfill the prophecy. I believe in him. I need you to do it too.
At about that time, Naruto walked in. Great sage, he asked. Gamamaru looked up. Oh, Naruto, I can't talk with you right now. I'm in the middle of talking with Jiraiya boy. I know, great sage, but this involves him as well. Gamamaru looked over, halfway sure he knew what Naruto was going to say. All the same, he let the boy speak. Great Toad Sage, is the prophecy he told about me true? Jiraiya looked up at Gamamaru. This was the defining moment. Gamamaru would either confirm his belief in Naruto or renounce the prophecy altogether. Gamamaru looked at Jiraiya and then back at Naruto. Naruto prodded further. Great Toad Sage. Gamamaru took a deep breath, lit a match, and then lit his pipe. He took a long drag and let it out. Yes, Naruto, the prophecy he told you about was true. Naruto looked down in disappointment. Why didn't you tell me this? Naruto asked. Gamamaru thought about it. I didn't want you to die like your father did. I raised your father since he was a child. He was my pride and joy. You are all I have left of him. Like you, I thought he was the child of prophecy, but I was wrong. And because of that, he died. I can't be wrong a second time. Jiraiya over here, he said that if he was wrong about you, and if you died, he would kill himself in front of me, but it would never reach that point. I would die before then, the sage said, his voice cracking, eyes beginning to water with the thought of it. With worry, Naruto approached the old toad and climbed up to him to give him a hug. Grandpa Gamma, I'm not gonna die. That's what Minato said, Gamamaru stated. He said he wasn't going to die either, and look where he is now, sleeping 6 feet deep. Naruto thought about it. Then maybe I have the same ideas as my father. It would be better for me to die, fighting for what I believe in, trying to end this war and save as many lives as possible, than to live here, a coward, knowing I could have saved lives but was too scared to. Please, Grandpa, you have to let me train with Jiraiya Sage. Please let me go fight in the war. Let me fulfill the prophecy you foresaw. Gamamaru lifted Naruto up in his arms and looked at him. For a moment, he was holding Minato again. His eyes overran and he hugged Naruto close to his face. Oh, Naruto. Jiraiya sat there silently watching. He wouldn't lie, this was hitting him in the feels too, but he knew that this was what was best for everyone. But the moment the hug ended, the old toad sage spoke. All right, Naruto, if this is what you wish, I will allow it. You're free to make your own decisions. Nobody can make them for you, and if you would be happier doing this, then I will support you. He looked down at the toads holding Jiraiya captive. Free him, he said. The toads loosened the chains, letting them fall to the side.
So does that mean I'm finally free to train Naruto?
Gamamaru nodded. Yes, Jiraiya. You're free to train Naruto. Just please be careful. I can't lose another child. Jiraiya smiled.
I promise.
Naruto was packing his bags. Shima was standing by the door watching it. On her face was scribbled a look of discomfort, worry, sorrow. You don't have to do this, Naruto, she said. You're not built for fighting. Naruto looked back at her. It's the prophecy. I know I might not be fit enough. Maybe I don't have muscles like the other warriors, but what matters isn't the strength of your body, but the strength of the heart. If my heart's strong enough, everything else will follow soon enough. But what if your heart's not strong enough? Shima asked as Naruto finished zipping the bag. He didn't answer. She spoke again. What will you do if your heart isn't strong enough? She demanded, her voice rising to get his attention. Have you even thought this through? This is a spur-of-the-moment desire. You're filled with fighting spirit because of what you've seen. In a couple of days, it'll fade, and you'll wish that you were back home. Naruto turned around, throwing the bag over his shoulder. You think I want to leave? You think I wouldn't rather stay here, playing with Gamakichi and Gamatatsu, eating the best grubs, playing by the river, catching fireflies? I would absolutely love to keep doing these things all the time, but others aren't able to, so how can I turn a blind eye? I'm not asking you to turn a blind eye, Naruto, Shima said as Naruto walked past her. I'm telling you that there are ways that you can help without risking your life. Naruto looked back. I've seen what the war's doing. Uncle Gamabunta's out there, fighting his hardest, and he's not getting anywhere. If we don't stop this war, not only will humanity cease to exist, but the toads too. Our entire culture, our way of life will be extinguished. I can't turn my back on that, Ma. I have to fight. I will fight. I gotta save my people, my friends, and my family. The prophecy predicted that I would train and fight and win. But you don't know that you're the chosen one, she shouted. Naruto looked back to listen. We thought Minato was the chosen one too. He was born here like you. Gamamaru took him in. I watched him grow. I was a surrogate to him like I am for you. He thought he was the chosen one. Everyone did. He went out, became Hokage, and rallied his people together to fight. And you know what happened to him? He died. He was killed. And I can't experience that again, Naruto. I'll die of heartache. As Shima stood there, her frustration poured out as tears across a face full of rage, daring Naruto to challenge her. That was when Naruto hugged her. Ma, I'm not gonna die. I'm gonna become strong. I'm going to become wise. And I'm gonna listen to Jiraiya-sensei, and we're gonna end this war. If all it takes is me to make a difference, then I owe it to the world to make that difference. Shima continued to cry. Why are you making me say goodbye? Because he's a grown man, Ma, Fukasaku said from the background, currently trying to solve a crossword puzzle. Naruto, what's an 8-letter word for a bright type of makeup used in a certain stage play about the 47 Ronin? You all get extra points if you answer this right in the comments. Naruto looked over. Pa, we're kinda having a moment here. Can your crossword wait? Fukasaku scoffed and then smiled. Naruto then spoke. You wanna join in? Say goodbye, he asked. Fukasaku pulled his bifocals down. Why? We're gonna see each other real soon, right? Naruto smiled. Yeah, we will. Fukasaku went back to reading his paper. Then all I have to say is stay out of trouble, like I say in most cases when you go out. So, stay out of trouble. If things start looking bad, haul ass out of there. And if things are looking good, don't let your guard down. Naruto nodded. He attempted to stand, but Shima wouldn't let go. Ma, I gotta go. Not yet. Just one more moment, please. Naruto's shoulders loosened as he lowered a little further down to let her continue the hug. She kissed his cheek and tried to fit in as much love as she could to keep them both until the next time they saw each other. Pulling back, she rubbed her forehead against his and kissed his nose. Please be careful, she said. I will. I promise, he said as he finally rose to his feet again. He stepped out the door. Fukasaku and Shima both came to the door to wave. Shima was fighting the urge to cry, and Fukasaku was smiling. They both waved. To be frank, Naruto felt like crying too. Something he realized was that he didn't have control over fate or anything, and this going to war was a leap of faith. He couldn't be sure that he was the one spoken of in the prophecy, and he couldn't be sure he would ever come back. And if he did come back, he couldn't be sure he would ever be the same as before. The next few years were likely to be very hard, both physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Everything about him would be tested, and if he was weak in even one place, he might not come home again. But at the same time, he very well could have been the child of prophecy, and if he was, then he needed to go. Walking further, he heard two voices call out to him. Naruto, they said. Naruto looked back to see Gamakichi and Gamatatsu hopping his way as quickly as possible. How can you leave and not tell us? Gamakichi said. Don't we matter anymore? Gamatatsu asked. Naruto knelt down next to his friends. Of course you guys matter. Things have just become complicated, and I had to get ready quickly. Still, you could have stopped by on your way out. Naruto looked away. I wasn't sure I could handle it. It was everything I could do to leave home. I wasn't sure I could maintain my composure. Besides, I hate goodbyes. They just make me feel like I'll never come back. As far as I'm concerned, this is just a long vacation. I'll be back, I promise. Gamakichi scoffed. You're leaving to go fight in a war. We're as old as you are. You trying to make us look bad or something? Can't wait a few more years until we join you? Naruto shook his head. I need to start my training now so that I can do what I need to do when the time comes. I don't know when my moment will arrive, but I need to be ready for it now. I'm sure we'll see each other on the battlefield eventually. Hopefully, it'll be over by then, but if not, we'll link up and become an unstoppable force. Sound good? Gamakichi looked back. You better still be around when I join up. If you're dead by the time I get there, I'll be training extra hard so I can whip your rear when I get to heaven. You feel me? Naruto smiled. I feel you, Keech. Gamatatsu hugged Naruto. I'm gonna miss you, Naruto. It's gonna be boring around here without you to play with us. I know, but if I come back soon enough, I'll be sure to bring souvenirs. It's a big world out there with lots of cool stuff. I'll bring you guys back a present. As the hug persisted, Naruto looked at Gamakichi. Hug? Gamakichi ignored him. Naruto, disappointed, accepted it for what it was. Some people were just too prideful to bear their emotions, but that was okay. Naruto knew that they were there, and that was enough for him. Standing up, he began to walk away. That was until he felt someone hug him from behind. He looked back. Keech? Gamakichi spoke. You better come back, Naruto, he said, unable to hide the emotions he was feeling, angry tears flowing from his face down. If you die, I'll never forgive you. Naruto turned back and received the hug, presenting one of his own. I'm gonna come back, Keech. Between you and my ma, y'all make it sound like I'm a dead man walking. Gamakichi pulled back and wiped his face. Sorry, just make good on your promise of coming back. I will. Until then, watch over this place for me. Make sure nothing bad happens, alright? Gamakichi smiled. Deal. Naruto turned and began to walk away, offering a slight wave over his shoulder. As he left, he passed by Gamamaru, who smiled at him. Be safe, Naruto. I will, Gramps. Feel free to send me a message if you need me, alright? Gamamaru nodded in agreement. Coming to Jiraiya's side, Jiraiya spoke. Ready to go? I am, Naruto said. You still haven't told me where we're going to train. We'll be there in moments, actually. I have a bit of a home away from Myoboku. It's in a mostly isolated area of land in the Land of Fire, just to the side of a small, nameless village off the map. Seems interesting. I can't wait for you to show me, Naruto said. I'm gonna show you a lot of things, Naruto. The real world might be a bit more dangerous than Myoboku, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. Jiraiya waved at Gamamaru, who returned the gesture. With that, Jiraiya and Naruto teleported away. As he left, Gamamaru's smile faded as he grew more and more sullen as the moment passed. Please, come back to us, Naruto, he whispered. Arriving at the home of Jiraiya, Naruto looked around. It felt so different. Mount Myoboku always had high humidity due to the warm atmosphere, but this place almost seemed to have a chill to it, though it probably didn't help that it was at night when they got there. Jiraiya walked to his house and lit a few lamps. Naruto entered. The house was similar to his home in Mount Myoboku, but different. Why did you start living here, Jiraiya-sensei? Naruto asked. Jiraiya thought back and began to chuckle. It's a bit of a long story. Naruto smiles and motions around. We got all night to talk about it. Jiraiya thought that maybe it was needed to be known, so he decided to show Naruto the village. As they walked together through it, Jiraiya felt like getting something to eat. Heading over to a restaurant, he told Naruto to order whatever he wanted, which of course would have been the village's special ramen noodles. When the food came, Jiraiya prepared to pay for it all, but the waiter denied him, telling him that it was to be on the house, which surprised Naruto. Wow, they really like you, Jiraiya-sensei. Jiraiya began to explain. He told them that this village was partially founded by him, something that Naruto was shocked by. During my time in the war, Jiraiya said, these people are some of the few who survived the Night of 10,000 Tears. The Night of, Naruto questioned. Jiraiya began to explain. That's the name we gave for the fall of Konoha. Naruto was shocked. You mean that these people are survivors of Konoha? Jiraiya nodded. When we pushed back the Hebi Sennin, the village was decimated. There were a few viable hovels for people to live in, but there was no defensive military to protect them. For fear that the snakes might come back, these people wanted to flee, so I took them under my wing and helped them find a new location, here. I helped them get started again. For all intents and purposes, one could call this New Konoha, but for the sake of it, we've never named the village out of fear of discovery. Only me and the toads I have a deep bond with know of this place. That being said, never speak of it anywhere until after the war ends. Wow, Jiraiya-sensei, you're basically the Hokage of this village. Jiraiya motioned his hand in a so-so pattern. We don't really do the same thing here that we did in Konoha. There's no real Kage, just a group of civilians who want to live their lives. They only defer to me because I help them get started and personally protect them when I can.
It's a symbiotic relationship, really. I protect them and bring them various goods, such as seeds and other wonderful things I trade for in other villages, and in exchange they keep me fed, housed, and surrounded by companionship.
Naruto slurped his ramen with a smile as he listened to the heartwarming story. Jiraiya continued.
You know, you could consider this village yours as well.
Really? How so?
Well, for instance, this village is full of the people your father died protecting. His sacrifice bought them time to escape. He is highly respected here, and to know that his son is in the village, following in his father's footsteps, well, that would just warm their hearts. So just know that you're always welcome here. If you ever need a place to stay, food to eat, or someone to tend your wounds, call this home base.
Naruto smiled, both shocked and overjoyed.
You think they'll accept me just like that?
Naruto asked. Jiraiya nodded.
These people have become a shining example of what humanity is supposed to be. They'll help anyone in trouble, even if they don't know them. But you they know, so why would they treat you any less?
Naruto smiled, his heart warmed by the concept.
I'm very grateful for their hospitality, and for yours, Jiraiya-sensei,
Naruto said with a bit of a bow.
It's no big deal, Naruto. I just think it's important to let you know how truly special you are, not just to the Toads, but to the rest of the world.
After having a meal, they returned home to rest. As the next day came, they began their training. Jiraiya was shocked at how very little Naruto knew. It wasn't just that Naruto had no training, he had a hard time even figuring out how to train. His body was inept, lacking in muscles, and with higher body fat percentage than he probably should have. But that was fine. Everyone started somewhere, and Naruto just started pretty low.
I think we're gonna need to start a training montage, Jiraiya said.
The first few months were getting him up to speed to even begin real training. When Naruto had built enough strength and stamina, Jiraiya began teaching him how to utilize various ninjutsu. Some of these were harder to complete than others, but Jiraiya gave him the full 9 yards for a few years just to make sure he had what it took to survive. By the end of the training, Naruto had turned 15 and was now in good enough shape to take the fight to the heavy Sennin. But before Jiraiya could allow Naruto to go to war, he felt that he had to test him first. Jiraiya stood there, looking at Naruto. The boy had grown, gotten stronger, and now looked like a force to be reckoned with. But despite how badass he now seemed, looks were nothing on the battlefield. Skill was where it counted, and without that, Naruto might as well fall over and die right here.
I've taught you all that I possibly can, Jiraiya said. Now it's time for you to show me that you took it to heart.
Naruto got ready, standing in a fighting stance. Jiraiya got low.
I hope you're ready for this.
Entering Sage Mode, Jiraiya dashed toward Naruto with incredible speed, using the after-image technique, which confused Naruto at first. Jiraiya gripped Naruto by the back of his collar and yanked him back, tripping him and putting him on the ground.
Fight back, Naruto, Jiraiya said. This isn't a game. I'm gonna go all out here. If you can't even beat me, you'll never make it to Minato's level. And if you're not Minato's level, you won't make it past the first battle.
Jiraiya kicked Naruto in the ribs, sending him rolling. Jiraiya, going down on all fours, began to use Hair Needle Senbon. Naruto saw the attack coming in. He was shocked at the speed in which it moved. The only thing he could think to do was use Earth Release to raise a wall to defend himself, which he did. The wall caught the hair needles, but while Naruto was catching his breath, Jiraiya came over the top and kicked Naruto, knocking him through the wall. Naruto landed on the other side. As much as his ribcage had been struck by kicks, he felt as though he had to have a crack somewhere. Jiraiya slowly approached from the distance. Looking back, Naruto saw Jiraiya coming like a monster in the night. Jiraiya spoke.
Never leave your sight obscured for too long. You never know what your opponent's doing.
What do you mean? Naruto asked.
I see you do that kind of thing all the time.
Jiraiya scoffed.
You think sight's achieved only with the eyes?
Jiraiya then proceeded to jump and kick Naruto through the tree into the next, snapping it as well. Naruto laid there and tried to catch his breath.
You really aren't taking it easy on me, are you?
Jiraiya stepped through the shattered wood toward Naruto.
You think anyone you meet on the battlefield will take it easy on you? Everyone you meet will be relentlessly trying to kill you. There are no timeouts in a battle. There are no breaks when killing your opponent. If you want to live, you better start fighting, else you're not worth keeping around.
Naruto rose to his knees and sat there for a moment, taking a few breaths. That was until Jiraiya's knee smashed into the side of Naruto's head, sending him rolling again.
What did I say? No timeouts. Get up and fight or go home.
Naruto, now starting to grow angry at Jiraiya, rose to his feet.
I don't want to hurt you, old man.
Jiraiya scoffed.
As if a worthless whelp like you could handle someone like me. You're a conceited fool if you think your youth affords you any natural advantage. If you're so worried about hurting people, then leave. In the war, that's all you'll do. To me, to others, and it'll happen to you as well. There will be blood. You'll see gore, guts laying on the ground, people frantically, frivolously trying to shove them back into their bodies. And you'll be the one doing it. You'll be the one responsible. You'll be the one who has to look into their terrified eyes and finish them off. You're afraid to hurt me. Nothing you could do to me could ever hurt me worse than the snakes have. So fight with everything you've got. Try to kill me. Try to end my life, because if you don't, I'll kill you myself.
Jiraiya brandished a kunai, showing that he meant business. Naruto could see it in his eyes. Jiraiya wasn't lying. Naruto, gritting his teeth and clenching his fists, let off a sigh.
If that's the way you want it, that is the way I want it. Let the monster in you out.
Jiraiya ran at Naruto. Deep inside of Jiraiya's head, he knew that this was the deciding moment. He was ready to punish Naruto for weakness.
If you don't fight back, I'm taking your eye,
Jiraiya said within his own head. This was the make or break moment. Either Naruto would rise to the occasion, or he would go home with one less eye than he had before. Getting into range, he attempted to stab Naruto. Before the kunai could even touch him though, Naruto's hand had caught Jiraiya's wrist. Jiraiya was surprised by how strong Naruto had truly become. To be able to stop not only Jiraiya's arm, but the weight of his whole body and the momentum behind it, and he did it with one hand. Jiraiya saw Naruto using Sage Mode.
Is that what made the difference? Jiraiya wondered.
Jiraiya himself was using Sage Mode as well, so either Naruto was physically superior or his Sage Mode was superior, perhaps both. Either way, this feat was impressive, but seeing the monster he had awakened in Naruto's eye, Jiraiya couldn't help but smile, knowing that Naruto was going to be okay. Now it was time for a little payback. Jiraiya braced himself for what he knew was coming next. Naruto's grip on Jiraiya's wrist tightened as he gave a quick jerk and a twist, breaking it.
Ugh!
Jiraiya rolled his eyes. He knew that one was coming. Naruto, letting out a roar, turned and threw Jiraiya into a tree before kicking him through it. Jiraiya rolled across the ground a little ways, but before he could get up, he had the sole of Naruto's boot on his face. Jiraiya laid there for a moment before tapping out. Slowly, the shoe moved from his face. Jiraiya let his Sage Mode go and offered a smile, despite the blood coming from his nose and mouth. Naruto looked down at him and let his own Sage Mode go. Jiraiya extended his good hand up, which Naruto took and brought him to his feet. It was clear by the look on Naruto's face that he was still pissed, but that was good.
That's good, Naruto. That rage will keep you alive. Anger, rage, so long as it's controlled and released in proper moments, will keep you alive. Emotions like this are basically the same as willpower, the refusal to give in. In the face of even the worst wounds, so long as you remain conscious through rage, your chances of survival increase.
Naruto, still coming down from his anger, looked. How's the wrist? Jiraiya laughed.
Completely snapped. I gotta stop letting this happen to me.
What do you mean? Naruto asked. Was it broken before? Jiraiya looked up with a tear in his eye, but not from pain.
Yep, it was broken once before. By Minato when I put him through the same thing.
Naruto's anger finally dissipated. He realized what Jiraiya had done, and slowly Naruto started to feel bad, his expression turning from rage to realization and then to sorrow. Jiraiya put his good hand on Naruto's shoulder with a chuckle.
Why so blue? You should be proud of yourself. Every soldier needs the will to survive no matter what. When two strong personalities clash, the one with more conviction tends to win. Be willing to fight with everything you've got. Be willing to sacrifice pretty much anything necessary. Fighting's a monster's game. It's for monsters. Unless you're a monster yourself, you've got no business fighting one.
Aren't the monsters the ones slayed in the end? Naruto asked. Jiraiya nodded.
Every monster has its day. Every monster will eventually fall by a hero's sword, but every hero eventually becomes a monster themselves. That's what war is and how it works. The only difference between true monsters and heroes is why they become monsters in the first place. That's the only thing that separates them. Never forget why you become a monster, Naruto. And when it's time to put the monster away, bury it deep with no marker and never look back.
Naruto nodded.
Now, help me get to the doctor. I gotta get this set.
Naruto helped Jiraiya to the doctor, where the doctor began the process of resetting his wrist. This was not fun for Jiraiya by any means, but once it was in the cast, he was okay. The doctor then spoke.
You really need to be more careful, Jiraiya. This is the second time I've had to reset your wrist. At this rate, it's almost a guarantee that you'll have arthritis in it. 10 years and you'll probably be unable to move it.
I know, Doc. My writing's becoming harder and harder to do, he said.
The doctor then spoke.
How did you even break it this time? Accidentally fall on it?
Jiraiya pointed back at Naruto, causing Naruto's face to turn a shade of pink in embarrassment.
This one broke it during training. I told him to go all out, and he went all out, completely snapping it.
The doctor let off a scoff of amusement.
Sounds like what happened between you and Minato all those years ago.
Jiraiya nodded.
I was surprised too, but truly it's the same. And why shouldn't it be? That boy's Minato's son.
The doctor's eyes widened as he looked up.
You're the child of Minato Namikaze?
Naruto nodded. Yes, sir, I am. The doctor smiled.
What's your name?
My name's Naruto.
Naruto. That's a wonderful name. It's a pleasure. You could call me Dr. Senzu.
Naruto shook the man's hand. Pleasure's mine. As Jiraiya stood, he prepared to speak when suddenly a girl's cries could be heard. They ran outside to find that a girl was running through the streets. "Help! Help, my sister!" Jiraiya ran out to her, as did Naruto.
What's going on? Jiraiya asked.
"My sister, Hinata, she's been captured." "Captured?" Naruto asked. The girl nodded. "As we were coming back from a trip to another village, a snake sage approached and attacked us. I barely got out alive. Hinata was taken." Naruto looked at Jiraiya, who was thinking deeply about this.
Why would they capture a human? They have, for the longest time, attempted to kill humans. Why take one alive now?
He looked at the girl again.
Miss Hanabi, can you show us on a map exactly where your sister went missing?
Naruto and Jiraiya, both well-armed, set off to find the lost girl. The journey took them into the land of wind, where they found themselves in the desert. This was truly a rough place to track. As the wind blew across the loose sand, the tracks were slowly covered by the dust. Jiraiya, though, used his senjutsu to see if he could sense any unusual nature chakra readings. Finding a trail, he followed it back to its home. It was a dark cave that led down into the firmer sandstone below the dunes.
"Maybe I should lead us, Jiraiya-sensei," Naruto said.
Jiraiya waved it off.
"I've got one good arm. It's all I need."
As they went deeper into the cave, they were ready. No matter what, they were going to get this girl back.
"This is a really big cave," Naruto whispered.
Jiraiya nodded.
"It is indeed, but regardless, we can't split up. We don't know how many enemies could be in here."
As they continued to walk, they found themselves entering a room with cages in it. At the end, there was a single cage closed with a light on above it. Within the cage was a young girl, no older than Naruto. They rushed over to the cage and began to pick the lock, startling the girl at first until she recognized Jiraiya. She came to the bars. "Master Jiraiya, please help me," she said. Jiraiya raised his finger to his lips to tell her to be quiet.
"Damn it, it's impossible to do this with one hand."
Jiraiya moved one of the tools into position against the pin and then stuck into it with his teeth. He then used his only good hand to work the other tool against the pins. Once he was sure he had them all, he twisted the key, opening the door. The girl came out and hugged Jiraiya. "It's horrible. They had other prisoners, and one by one they took them away."
"There were others here. What happened to them?"
Hinata was shaking in his arms.
"Can you tell us what happened?" Naruto asked.
The people who were here, they got turned into some kind of mindless monster."
"What do you mean?" Jiraiya asked.
Hinata spoke. "They said it was forcing a transformation through sage energy."
"A sage transformation?" Jiraiya questioned.
"What's that?" Naruto asked. Jiraiya shook his head.
"I'm not entirely sure. Sage mode is only supposed to make you stronger. It shouldn't completely transform your body unless it's an unbalanced usage."
"I don't know how it works," she said. "This is just going off of what I heard."
"Who did you hear it from?" Jiraiya asked.
"A snake sage. He was large, terrifying. I saw his face and it was vaguely human, and his body was made up of hundreds or thousands of smaller snakes."
"Who is she talking about, Jiraiya-sensei?" Naruto asked.
Jiraiya thought about it for a moment, his face showing concern.
"She's talking about Orochimaru."
"Who's that?" Naruto asked.
"Orochimaru was once a human," Jiraiya said. "He betrayed the village 12 years ago, leading to its destruction. Because of his betrayal of humanity, the snake sages accepted him as a bit of a pet. He's a plaything for them, an attempt to see how far they can push a human before they lose their mind. It seems Orochimaru has finally lost his, and now he's doing the same to others. But how? Why?"
Jiraiya looked around.
"Have you seen any other humans around here?" he asked.
Hinata shook her head. Jiraiya helped her up.
"Then let's get out of here."
As they began to make their way out, they found themselves blocked off. Before them was a rather large grouping of humans, or what once were humans. These creatures had human shapes, but their appearances were unnatural, or at least unnatural to their species. Sensing the nature energy emanating from them, Jiraiya knew they were nothing but natural. It was a strange conundrum, but then again, the Dark Master behind them was himself the center of the conundrum of a human who tried to become what he was not, a snake.
"What have you done, Orochimaru?"
Jiraiya asked. "I simply did what the masters desired. An army, easily controlled, turned into a powerful weapon, easily disposed of. If the Gamma Sennin can use humans as their tools, why not the Hebi too?"
"The toads don't use humans, they fight with them."
"One man's treasure's another man's trash, I suppose. But all the same, here we are. And now that the already superior snakes have taken away the toad's only advantage, this war will finally draw to a close." Orochimaru slowly slithered back. "Kill them." The sage transformed humans began to chase them. Naruto and Jiraiya turned back and began to run. As they did, Naruto took up the rear, ready to defend them. Given that Hinata wasn't as fast as them, she slowed the group down, which allowed the enemy to catch up. As they attacked, these creatures seemed to be able to mold their skin into whatever they desired. Some even grew faster as chakra-based jets appeared on their back, rocketing them along. Those that were already close enough turned their hands into fists propelled by chakra rockets in an attempt to strike down Naruto. But Naruto would form a Rasengan in his hand and smash it into the fist of one of the monsters. It completely blew off the monster's hand, but that barely slowed it down. It began to regenerate. Some formed their arms into massive drills, hoping to tear a hole through their adversaries. The sheer adaptability of these creatures was beyond anything Jiraiya had ever seen. That, mixed with the overwhelming power their sage energy granted them, proved to be more than enough to surpass anything even a sage-trained human could be capable of. The only benefits basic sage humans had over these things was sanity and intellect, as these things seemed to lack anything beyond instinct. As they ran, they reached a point where they could not go any further. The sandstone cut them off. It was a dead end. Their dead end. Jiraiya pushed Hinata behind him.
Naruto, any ideas?
Jiraiya asked. Naruto thought about it.
I've got one, but it's not very good.
Do you have a good singing voice? Naruto asked. Jiraiya began to understand. Jiraiya began to unbalance his sage mode a bit more to cause his body to take on the shape of a toad. Naruto also transformed this way. They then proceeded to utilize demonic illusion toad confrontation chant to cast the incoming monsters under genjutsu. When they were under, they transformed back into humans and grabbed one of the monsters and dragged them over to them. They used its drills and chakra rockets to get them through the sandstone to the surface. Discarding the monster in the desert, they fled back to the village. Naruto and Jiraiya returned home. Naruto kept Hinata warm through the cold desert night air, something she deeply appreciated. Once they returned, he reunited her with her sister and parents. All the while, Jiraiya traveled back to Mount Myoboku to inform Gamamaru about what he had discovered. As he entered the Great Toad Sage's court, the sage greeted him.
Welcome back, Jiraiya. It's been a few years, hasn't it? How's Naruto's training coming along?
He's actually finished, just recently. He's become very strong and resourceful, Jiraiya said. It was then that Gamamaru noticed Jiraiya's wrist. Jiraiya, noticing the gaze the old Toad Sage was giving his hand, spoke.
You should be proud. Naruto is proving to be every bit as strong as Minato.
Gamabunta smiled at the idea of how strong Naruto had become.
I will have to tell Shima and Fukasaku. They'll love to hear from him.
It's been a while since his last letter. Jiraiya nodded.
Naruto's been busy, but I'll be sure to tell him to write another when I get back.
As they stood there, Jiraiya's expression seemed to darken. Gamamaru then spoke.
I sense that your return isn't only to deliver good news, is it?
Jiraiya shook his head.
No, it's not, I'm afraid to admit.
What's going on? Jiraiya would then begin to explain everything that he and Naruto had been through.
We received word that one of the villagers from New Konoha had been captured by the Snake Sages in the Land of Wind. We went to investigate, and when we got there, we found the secret base. Entering inside, we found the girl and freed her, but as we left, we came to realize what was going on. Orochimaru has been turned into a Snake Sage himself, so much so that he's hardly recognizable. He's actually taken on the form of a snake.
A snake? How is that possible? Gamamaru asked.
I can't be certain, but whatever it is, the Snake Sages have learned how to completely ruin a person. They turned Orochimaru into a weapon, and Orochimaru's own intellect has passed that on. We discovered that he's been experimenting on humans for the Hebi in an attempt to make them fit weapons for war, and he succeeded. No human is as physically capable as these. I've taken to calling them Bakemono. These Bakemono are capable of changing their body as they see fit into weapons, as well as even chakra cannons and the like. If this war drags on much longer, they're going to amass an army we can't overcome.
Gamamaru nodded, but his smile didn't fade. This piqued the curiosity of Jiraiya, who then spoke.
Why aren't you afraid?
Gamamaru then spoke.
Gamabunta's been carving a line into Hebi territory. He's about ready to push into Ryuchi Cave. And the best part is, the Hebi have no clue that he's there. He's ready to reverse summon you and Naruto to his location. As soon as your wrist is healed, let him know and he'll take you there.
Jiraiya was amazed. Could it be possible? Was this finally the end of the war? He couldn't help but smile. It might have been too late for those humans who were transformed by Orochimaru, but it was not yet too late for humanity as a whole, and they were about to prove it. Cold steel, iron, and unfeeling metal, neither soft nor caring, the metal blade was as hard as the wills that drove them forward. Naruto was currently looking at a katana in his hand. Mount Myoboku was preparing for war. Gamabunta, one of the great sage generals, had found his way behind enemy lines undetected, and was now in position just outside of Ryuchi Cave. The plan was simple. When the Hebi Sennin weren't paying attention, they would sneak into the cave and capture Great Snake Sage herself. If successful, this could mean the end of the war. The Hebi would surrender, and humans could once again live in peace, this time having learned from their mistakes. As Naruto stood there looking in the mirror, he was not only holding the katana, but was wearing some armor that seemed a few sizes too large. He kept tightening the belts and straps to get it locked down as comfortable and out of the way as possible. It was at around that time that he noticed Fukasaku standing in the mirror behind him.
"You look good in that armor," he said.
Naruto shrugged a little. "It's a little too big." Fukasaku nodded.
"It was your father's. Your father was a good bit older than you are now when he started wearing it, almost twice your age. It's a miracle that it fits this well on you at all."
Naruto looked at the armor. "What was my father like when growing up, Pa?" Fukasaku pulled up a chair and invited Naruto to sit down across from him, something that Naruto did. Fukasaku began to stroke his chin and the goatee attached.
"Your father was born on Mount Myoboku as well. He was the last child born to the now extinct Namikaze clan. His mother, much like yours, was heavily wounded when she got here. She had taken a deep wound to the stomach and couldn't stop crying. There was no wonder why. She'd believed that her baby had been killed. We were afraid too. Sadly, she died while giving birth, so it was a bit harder to deliver Minato. But as soon as we saw him, we knew he was a miracle baby. He was premature, yes, but he was a fighter. Myself and Ma, as well as Gamamaru himself, stayed nearby. Not a second went by for those months that Minato didn't have someone nearby. Gamamaru, seeing Minato grow into a healthy infant, defying the odds, made him certain that if any child born on the mountain could bring balance back to the world, it was him. Gamataro, the great sage himself, adopted Minato as his own and often left the boy in our care, not too unlike how we've done with you. Minato, growing up, was kind, sweet, and gentle, but he was quick and sharp when needed. He showed so much potential. A natural sage, he had it mastered the moment we introduced it to him. When the other pollywogs would accidentally hurt themselves playing, he was the first to help them. And if anyone was being bullied by a larger toad, he would quickly step in. We groomed him to be the best warrior we had, lending him to Jiraiya to train. Jiraiya was a close friend of the family, and he was a powerful warrior and sage in his own right. But while we could have had Minato trained by anyone else, we thought it should be Jiraiya boy. After all, Jiraiya was human, and Minato was as well. There would be camaraderie there that just couldn't be matched by other toads. Jiraiya would know more about Minato than we toads ever could. Sure, we could read a book and tell you what he was feeling, but we couldn't tell anyone why he was feeling it. That was something only Jiraiya could do. As our baby boy grew though, he would leave the mountain to join the war. During his time out fighting, he became something of a folk hero to the humans. In a rather large village, Minato would find his rest. He was taken in by the guardian of the village, a warrior of nature in her own right, the vessel of the Nine Tails, a physical manifestation of nature's fury itself. The two grew closer through mutual trust forged in war. Even on the battlefield, amidst the rubble and death, love could blossom. And it was that love that gave hope to those around. In a way, you gave hope to people. Despite the significant loss of life, new life was being created, born of love and peace, not war. The people trusted Minato with their lives. They offered him the highest position in the village, the office of Hokage, which he humbly accepted. But one day, the village was ripped up by its roots. The Hebi attacked in the night with as many forces as possible, and in the course of the battle against Hydra, Minato fell. They say, Fukasaku almost started crying. They say when they found his body, it was so venom that his complexion was a shade of purple. And as for your mother, she perished, taking the nine-tailed fox with her, and it has yet to regenerate. Fukasaku wiped his eyes and sniffed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring you down, kiddo. It's okay, Pa, Naruto said with a smile. I've never heard much about my parents. We should have told you from the very start, but we were afraid that you'd try to walk in your father's footsteps. I guess even though we didn't say anything about it, you still did. Naruto leaned forward. It's okay. I know why you hid it from me. I'm not mad. Well, I'm glad you're not, because I am. I feel like we've disrespected Minato's memory by hiding his presence in your life. I'm sure he would understand. Fukasaku smiled again. Maybe so, but anyway, I came to bring you something. What is it? Naruto asked. Fukasaku presented it to him. This is your father's kunai. It was made special for him. Naruto picked it up and looked at it. His awe couldn't be hidden. He tested the tip of the three-pronged kunai. It was still sharp. His finger rolled down the wooden handle and looked at the characters scribbled into it. Sword of Enduring Love, Naruto read. That was something your father always called himself. He believed that one day the Hebi would surrender, and that he would then bring them back into the fold of the sages. He believed them to be out of balance and hoped to restore them that which was lost. Naruto understood. Fukasaku then spoke.
Another cool thing about that though is that it's kind of like a summoning seal. No matter where the kunai is, so long as it has that seal on it, you can reverse summon yourself to it, Fukasaku said. I think that would be a useful tool for you, and I'm sure your father would want you to have it. Naruto placed the kunai away in a pouch. Naruto leaned forward and hugged Fukasaku. As he did so, Fukasaku spoke. You better come back here alive, Naruto. I will, Naruto said. He then pulled back and looked at the time. I think it's time that I go. I don't want to hold the party up. He stood. Give my love to Ma for me, will ya? I will, Fukasaku said as he waved goodbye to the one he considered a son. Naruto would go outside where he'd find Gamakichi and Gamatatsu. You're leaving already? Gamakichi asked. I'm afraid so. I only stopped back to get some supplies. The two toads seemed upset. It's been so long since we've seen you, and you only come back for like 30 minutes? Not fair. Naruto pat their shoulders. It's okay, guys. I'll be back here soon. The war might be over not too long from now, but for that to happen, I need to go help your dad out. The two toads seemed to understand, but that didn't mean that they weren't still upset by it. In truth, Naruto was upset as well, but he comforted himself by remembering that the war might be over very soon. He made his way to where Jiraiya was waiting. You ready to end this? Jiraiya asked. Naruto smiled. I've been ready to end this since it started. That's the spirit, one of the Toad Warriors said. Jiraiya would pat Naruto on the back. We just need a little more time, then we'll be off, Jiraiya said. And so, Naruto took a little more time off to let the others prepare. When that was complete, Jiraiya called him over. You ready? Naruto nodded. He then proceeded to reverse summon himself and their reinforcements to Gamabunta, who was just outside of Ryuchi Cave. I was wondering when you pipsqueaks might show up, the massive toad said. Jiraiya laughed. You had us waiting for years to get to this point. I think you can handle about 5 minutes being off schedule. Jiraiya looked around. Honestly, how did you find this place? It's been kept a well-hidden secret for ages. You'd be amazed how you can make a snake sing, Jiraiya. All it takes is straightening them out lengthwise and taking inches from their tail at a time till you reach the head. Naruto was slightly appalled at the dark humor. The idea of torturing a surrendering enemy seemed so foreign, so evil. But he let it go. He was going to focus on what he could do, and that was to bring balance and end the war. How many snakes do you think could be in there? Naruto asked. Gamabunta shrugged. I haven't seen anyone go in or come out. I'm pretty sure we've got Hebi on the run. I bet it's practically deserted in there. Only one way to find out, Jiraiya said. He pointed forward. The group slowly began to approach the cave, sneaking about. Once inside, they began to make their way through the narrow tunnels. Ugh, I can tell this was made for snakes, Gamabunta said, trying to suck in enough to squeeze through. They kept their eyes peeled. I haven't seen any guards yet, Naruto said. That's not really a surprise, Jiraiya replied. This place was designed as a maze. They expect the cave to do most of the heavy lifting. Do you know how to get through the maze into the sage's chambers, he asked. Gamabunta smiled. They were a very useful prisoner, and now a very short snake. Then lead on, Jiraiya said. They moved through the maze of caves until they found what seemed to be the main throne room. There was a massive white snake sitting in the middle of the room, surrounded by plenty of corrupted humans. They've got Bakemono in there, Jiraiya said. That's no big deal, Gamabunta replied. They're just above average humans, right? No biggie for someone like me. They gang up on you, Gamabunta Sage, Naruto said. With their rocket-propelling legs and their piston fists, it's gonna be a lot for even you to tank. And let's not even get started on their drills and chakra cannons. Gamabunta was shocked. Most of that sounded fine until you mentioned drills. That borders on a phobia of mine. Just be very careful with them, Jiraiya said. They're not to be underestimated just because they're standard units. Gamabunta pulled out his blade. How about we switch targets then? Since you know the Bakemono so well, give me the Snake Sage. I think I'd fare better against her than you guys would anyway. Don't forget that Naruto has to be the one to bring balance. Gamabunta scoffed. And he will be. I can't cut that snake's head off unless he protects me. Gamabunta stepped out of the shadows. This surprised the Snake Sage. Ah, Gamabunta. What a surprise. I didn't expect to see you here. How did you find this cave? Tattletales, Gamabunta said. The sage laughed. I suppose secrets never remain secrets the more people talk about them. Gamabunta pointed his blade at the sage. Secrets out, lady, and soon your guts will be too. The snake sage hissed and rose to her full height. She was massive. In any other setting, Naruto would have thought her majestic. Too bad she was a threat to their very lives. Naruto and Jiraiya began to battle against the Bakemono. As they did, Gamabunta engaged with the Great Snake Sage. The snake was long and larger than Gamabunta even. Its fangs glistened in the torchlight. It was dim in the cave, but that didn't seem to affect the sage all that much, as she seemed perfectly able to see even in the dark. That being said, some believed that snakes could also see the infrared spectrum, which gave her an advantage here, or so Naruto assumed. He actually never asked if a toad could see infrared. As the great snake sage drew closer, Gamabunta hopped at her with his blade in hand, ready to stab her from the get-go. But before he could connect, her tail appeared from the coiled mess behind her and struck into Gamabunta, sending him sprawling. Gamabunta attempted to get back to his feet as quickly as possible. As he stood there, ready to attack again, he began to notice that the slithery serpent's tail was slowly circling around them. It was strange to Gamabunta that he'd be fighting his adversary in an arena made of his adversary. He rushed at the snake sage again, attempting to carve into her, only for her to open her mouth and use her fangs to catch his blade without injury. Gamabunta, angered by this, tried again, only to be pushed back a second time. The great snake sage would spit venom toward him, which splashed onto his face, causing Gamabunta to cry out and cover his eyes. As he stumbled back, the snake sage lunged out at him and bit his shoulder. As he stood there, the pain of the bite spreading through his body, the snake sage let out her poison. Gamabunta would stumble, falling against the edge of the arena. "What's the matter, Toad? Can't handle a little snake venom?" That's when Gamabunta remembered. The arena itself was made of the snake sage. He turned around and drove his blade into the snake sage's side, causing it to roar out in pain. Enraged by the sudden piercing of its side, it launched to strike him again, but this time Gamabunta was ready. He took his blade and smashed it down. The tip entered the top of the beast's snout, went through its mouth and down through its lower jaw, point digging deep into the ground, pinning the giant snake. As the snake sage struggled to get free, Gamabunta climbed onto its back and retrieved his blade. Once he had it, he jumped high up into the air and began to fall to the ground, where he severed the snake's head. As its head rolled, Gamabunta fell down, the venom starting to wreck his body. It was at about this time that Naruto and the others were finishing off the bakemono. They turned back to see Gamabunta fall over. They ran to his side. "Uncle G," Naruto called out. As the old toad laid there, he spoke.
"I'm fine, kid. I just need a break."
Jiraiya began to inspect the head of the great sage when suddenly the majority of its mass disappeared, revealing not the snake sage, but Orochimaru instead. As Jiraiya looked at the serpentine form of the man he once called a kindred spirit, he was filled with both sorrow and dread.
"This wasn't the snake sage," he said.
Gamabunta looked over his belly at Jiraiya.
"The hell you mean it's not the snake sage?"
He noticed it was Orochimaru. "Then where's the real snake sage?" Naruto asked. Jiraiya shook his head.
"Your guess is as good as mine, Naruto."
The more Naruto looked over it, the more his mind ran with it. Orochimaru was impersonating the snake sage, so the sage was already gone by the time we got here. Does that mean they anticipated the attack? Jiraiya was unsure. Naruto continued. "I thought this place seemed empty. Maybe they left with all their forces somewhere else." Jiraiya began to think about it when suddenly terror filled his heart.
"We need to get back to New Konoha, now!"
"What about Gamabunta?" one of the Toad Sage soldiers asked.
"He's been poisoned and he can't handle another fight right now."
Jiraiya cursed at the situation.
"Take him back to Mount Myoboku and get him back on his feet. Me and the others will head for New Konoha."
The toads nodded and disappeared with Gamabunta. After that, Naruto and Jiraiya teleported away to New Konoha. As soon as they made it there, they realized their worst fears had come to pass. The village was under attack by Hebi Sennin. The few toads that remained, Jiraiya commanded to fan out, protect survivors, evacuate the village, and fight back if possible. It was at about that time that an ear-splitting roar, unlike any they'd ever heard before, sounded. Or more like one Naruto had never heard before. Jiraiya's face went pale. "What was that?" Naruto asked. Jiraiya looked to him.
"It was nothing. Just help the other toads."
Jiraiya began to leave. "Jiraiya-sensei!"
"I already told you to help the toads. That's an order."
Jiraiya left. Naruto wondered what could have scared Jiraiya so badly. Disregarding orders, he confirmed to the toads that they should do as Jiraiya said, and then proceeded himself to follow Jiraiya. As he stood atop a rooftop, looking off into the distance, he saw something truly terrifying. It was a mass of snakes together. Naruto had believed that they formed a mating ball, but the closer he inspected it, the more he came to realize that they actually shared the same body.
"That's what Hydra is? It's massive," he said.
To a point, he was certain that this snake were even bigger than the snake sage they had seen before.
"There's no way that Jiraiya-sensei can handle that alone."
Naruto began to rush off after him. When he got to the site of the battle, he saw Jiraiya in his sage mode, holding a katana ready to attack. Naruto was also holding his katana, so he joined him. "Master!" he called out. Jiraiya looked back mortified.
"Naruto, get out of here!" he shouted.
One of the many heads launched at Jiraiya. Jiraiya dodged to the side and proceeded to carve the head off with great power. As the head came rolling off, the rest of the heads seemed to grimace at the loss while the whole body started to quiver. "You did it! You heard it! Now attack before it can recover!" "No, Naruto!" Jiraiya shouted. Naruto launched at the beast, climbing up its scales with the chakra on his feet, heading for the next head. That's when one of the heads smashed into him and sent him flying back into a wall. Naruto looked up and saw that from the 9th head's stump of a neck, 2 more heads were growing, giving Hydra a total of 10 heads. Naruto was startled. It can regrow heads? How do you kill something like that? He tried to break free and attack again, but Jiraiya told him to stop. "I lost Minato to this thing. I won't lose you too. But you can't take it by yourself. Even you said my father was stronger than you, and if he couldn't do it, what hopes do you have alone?" "Better than you. Go back," Jiraiya said as he attempted to climb the beast. Naruto, feeling slighted by this, rushed in anyway. He could at least play distraction while Jiraiya worked, but then again, this didn't seem to be very effective, as he could only get the attention of 2 or 3 heads at a time, 4 if you were lucky. All the heads were sentient, so dividing attention was nothing for them. Naruto began to form a Rasengan in his hand. He fueled it with sage energy, preparing to turn it into a big ball Rasengan. He dared Hydra to attack him, which it did. As it came at him, he smashed it in the nose with the Rasengan, sending it reeling. It recovered quickly though, and the many heads not occupied with Jiraiya focused on Naruto. The tail swung out of nowhere and struck Naruto, sending him flying back. As Naruto hit the wall, he was hardly conscious. That's when Hydra came at him to bite him. Before the teeth could tear into him though, Jiraiya stood in the way. The fangs passed through Jiraiya's back and out his front. Naruto was shocked. "Master Jiraiya!" Jiraiya had already been bitten multiple times, but none as bad as this. "Naruto, run!" The snake pulled Jiraiya back away from Naruto before throwing him to the ground. "Jiraiya-sensei!" Hydra then slapped its tail, crushing Jiraiya. Naruto saw this and felt a sense of anger, sorrow, and pure unbridled rage building in him. He grabbed his katana. Tears running down his cheeks, he felt a power burning in him that he never noticed before. A burning, bubbly chakra pouring from every pore. He didn't understand it, but he didn't feel he needed to. He rushed at Hydra to attack. As he got closer, Hydra's movements were quick, and he managed to spit poison on Naruto. Naruto powered through it and got to the beast's heads, where he chopped one off. With his sword beginning to heat up from his new chakra, he noticed that the wound had cauterized. As he jumped backwards, he once more watched the beast attempt to regenerate, but much to his surprise, as well as to the surprise of the snake, no head grew in. Its head count returned to 9, the angry snake roaring at Naruto. It swung its tail, but Naruto caught it. The angered serpent proceeded to lunge at him while it could. Naruto took off another head, but some of the remaining heads that his katana wasn't fast enough to get drew in closer and bit Naruto. He felt the venom coursing through his body. He jumped back to recalculate his plan of attack, or so he had thought. Suddenly he began to feel woozy. His vision started to blur, and though he was shaking his head trying to break free of the poison, his body was stumbling out of its fighting stance. The snake would then smash Naruto with its tail, sending him flying back toward the wall. Naruto hit and was wedged into the wall. He managed to pull himself free as he had before, but as he reached down to pick up his katana, he felt his knees weaken. Falling down, his breathing quickened. He leaned on his blade for stability. He attempted to get back to his feet, but they went out from under him, and he fell down the stairs of the building he was caught in. As he laid there, he noticed his hand was quickly growing purple. His vision blurred and faded as more Hydra heads seemed to appear in the darkness. His eyes rolling up, he couldn't hold on any longer. He passed out. As Hydra drew closer to finish the job, he was surprised to see what happened next. Out of the blue, a girl of young age, no older than Naruto, rushed in like a blur, grabbed him by the arm and raced out with him. Hydra attempted to follow her, but wasn't fast enough to keep up. Eventually, it gave up the chase. Making it to a safe distance, Hinata turned around and saw that the flames continued to ascend up for what seemed like forever. The beast loomed in the distance, only its shadow playing upon the smoke could be seen. Hinata laid Naruto down and looked at how discolored his skin was getting. "Naruto! Naruto!" she cried, trying to wake him. She checked his breathing only to hear it cease. His pulse was gone. "Naruto!" she shouted. She put her hand on his chest and proceeded to use the gentle fist technique to send chakra pulses into his chest to restart his heart. "Please, someone help!" she cried out as she tried to restart his heart. "Help us!" she continued to shout as tears ran from her eyes. "I never got to tell him thank you," she said. It was then that she noticed something small on the ground, neither a toad nor a snake. It spoke to her. "Let us help you." Naruto was in darkness. He thought he saw a light and heard voices, but that didn't last long. Right now, he was floating through the dark limbo of his own mind. That's when he started to hear new voices. "Get that armor off him," it said. He heard the sound of clanking metal and the tearing of cloth. His whole torso is discolored. 3 bite wounds. 1 on the collarbone through the cervical area, 1 bite on the rib cage through the thoracic area, and 1 on the stomach and the lumbar area. All wounds pass clean through. Pressure building in the chest cavity. We need to relieve the pressure. Get the anti-venom. No, bring the whole box. Naruto heard the voices distinctly but saw no light. He couldn't move. His body was frigid. Is this what it feels like to die? It's so cold. He heard commotion. Please, Naruto, a familiar voice said to him. Don't give up. I never told you thank you for saving me from Hebi. Naruto felt as if a hand from hell reached up and grabbed him by the nape of the neck and began pulling him back. His body was in chains, being dragged down into the pit. He heard screams and wails, and there he heard the slithering of snakes and the giggles of Hydra. The child of prophecy. So pitiful. Your father put up a better fight than you. I guess you were wrong. Jiraiya was wrong. You should have stayed on Myoboku. Naruto dangled there in chains for quite some time. That was until he felt the chains suddenly shatter as a new hand, a red hand covered in fur, gripped him by the collar of the shirt and pulled him upwards. As it dragged him up, his eyes opened. He normally would have awakened with a start, but not now. He was still too weak. He looked down to see the face of the girl he and Jiraiya had saved from Orochimaru's lab laying there, her head on his chest. He then noticed that most of his torso was covered in wounds, wrapped in bandages. He tried to move, but felt a sudden intense pain in his, well, everywhere, that robbed him of his ability to breathe. A new voice then spoke. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Naruto looked over to see a blonde woman wearing a green haori, taking a swig from a whiskey flask. Who are you? He asked in little more than a whisper. The woman wiped her chin and closed the cap on the flask. My name's Tsunade. I'm a sage of the slugs. Slugs? Naruto questioned. I thought the slugs were neutral. Tsunade nodded. We are. We don't fight the snakes, nor do we fight the toads. But nobody said we couldn't heal anybody. Tsunade pointed back to show multiple toads and snakes being treated at the same time, side by side. Even some of the bakemono were being treated. Certain injections were being given to them that seemed to almost return them to human. The slugs are healers, Naruto. We don't fight. I don't understand, he said. Tsunade let out a sigh. The only combat we use is self-defense, but we remain pacifists. That's our representation. Just as the snakes represent the cruelty of nature and the toads represent the wisdom, and humans represent the tenacity, the slugs represent the nurturing side of nature. We don't kill, we only heal. She looked back at Naruto. Who's that girl there? She asked. Naruto shook his head. I rescued her once, but I don't remember her name. Well, you better remember it now. If it weren't for her, you'd be dead. While you were down, your heart stopped on multiple occasions. She kept you alive with CPR. She refused to leave your side in any way until we pulled her off. And then we could only keep her away long enough to work. Sounds to me like she's got a crush. Naruto thought about it, but then he remembered. Jiraiya-sensei! Is Jiraiya-sensei alright? Tsunade shook her head. I'm sorry, Naruto. We tried to save him, but it was too late. By the time we injected him with the anti-venom, he was gone. His insides had been liquefied. We turned his body over to the toads for a proper burial. Naruto's head laid back as he began to let tears run from his stoic face. The woman drew closer. What are you, by the way? Naruto looked at her in confusion. Tsunade continued. You should have died, but you didn't. The best we could say was that it was a miracle. You were fighting the poison unlike anything we've ever seen. Most people like you would be dead seconds after a single bite. Not only did you push through, but you survived up to 2 hours with little internal damage. Naruto looked down, unsure of what to say. I felt a rush of power come over me. Bubbles of chakra. Tsunade nodded. Sounds almost like a tailed beast mode. But then again, the Nine Tails is dead, isn't it? Tsunade began to walk away. After a little rest, Naruto had healed. He had done so very quickly. Standing up, he led Hinata with him to the Slug Sage. Great Slug Sage, I wanted to thank you for your hospitality and care for myself, for the toads, and even for the snakes. It fills me with hope to know just how many kind-hearted people exist, and reminds me that maybe one day we can all live in peace again. The Slug Sage, looking at him through the stalks that extended up from its head, spoke. Brave child of prophecy, that world will come to pass. But as for you, your hour of destiny is at hand. The snakes have led an assault upon Mount Myoboku, and are in the process of attempting to kill Gamamaru, the Toad Sage. What? How did they find it? Naruto asked. Mount Myoboku is supposed to be hidden. The sage then spoke. The one you call Jiraiya. His body was returned to the toads who planned to bury it upon the mountain. However, they were unaware that the body was marked by the snakes. It led the snakes to their location. All of the forces of the Hebi and all of the forces of the Gamma are standing against each other. For better or worse, today is the last day of the war, and the children of man will see their fate decided." Naruto thought about it. He nodded. "Great sage, may I have returned to me my weapons and armor? I wish to go bring peace." The sage nodded and called for his armor. Naruto began to put it on. "You're going to fight?" Hinata asked. "I am." "Are you sure that you're strong enough, though? You were bedridden only yesterday." Naruto nodded. "I have no choice. It's do or die. This is why I started training." "I know you have a duty, and I won't stop you, but I did want to say that it meant a lot to me that you rescued me. And, Naruto, I love you." Naruto looked back. Hinata was blushing. Naruto wasn't sure how to react, so he didn't. He simply spoke. "Help me get the straps buckled." She did. Once she had, he turned around. "Don't think I don't care about what you said. I simply can't entertain the thought right now. I've got a mission, but I promise when I come back, we'll explore that. Deal?" Hinata smiled. "Deal." She handed him his weapon and kissed his cheek. "For luck." He smiled. He then reverse summoned himself back to Mount Myoboku. The place was in ruin. The toads were facing off against the greatest of snakes, and Gamabunta was still unconscious from his battle against Orochimaru. Naruto, standing on one of the peaks, shouted out, "Great sage of the snakes!" All eyes turned to see him. Naruto then continued, "I challenge you to a battle. Let this war be decided by a duel between warriors. Winner takes dominion, loser surrenders to their better." The true snake sage smiled. "Fair, I agree. However, I will not be the one you face. I will send out only my greatest champion." At that moment, Hydra stepped forward.
"Little human, I thought I'd killed you when I put an end to your master. I commend you on surviving my poison, but nobody gets lucky twice."
"I know," Naruto said, "which is why I'm going to let you surrender to me now." Hydra, hearing what Naruto said, began to laugh.
"Humans are truly an amusing race. Their ignorance knows no bounds. If you're so confident, come down here to me and let's settle this once and for all."
Naruto jumped down and landed before them all. The snakes and toads began to make room for the battle. Naruto, pulling out his katana, spoke. "Your death is at hand, Hydra. I will avenge my father, my mentor, and my village today." "And I," Hydra said, dragging out his sentence, "will complete my collection. When I spill your blood, I'll be able to say I killed all supposed children of prophecy, and show the world how foolish Gamamaru was." A few moments passed again as Naruto called up his bubbling chakra. Shima saw this. "Impossible! Nine-Tails' chakra?" "I thought you said it died with Kushina," Fukasaku said. "She must have passed down a portion of it to her baby before dying." "Does this mean Naruto can win?" Gamakichi asked. As Naruto stood there ready, Hydra's heads were slithering about in an intimidating fashion. A moment later, Naruto began to attack. The heads of Hydra began to strike out at Naruto, biting, spitting poison. Though the bites would hurt, he was protected from the poison by his thick layer of chakra. Naruto would avoid one head and then cut it off, cauterizing it. Hydra roared and looked at what remained of the head, a burned, empty stump. Enraged, it began to swing its tail at Naruto. Naruto began running in the way that the tail was headed. As it was about to strike him, he jumped up and drove his katana into the tail. The beast roared and whipped its tail up, causing Naruto to be cast into the sky. As he began falling toward the beast, he threw a multitude of kunai and shuriken to distract it. He then managed to cut off and cauterize 2 more heads. The beast shook him off. Hydra, reduced to 6 heads, began to grow enraged. Few had ever removed a head and lived to tell the tale. Even fewer had managed to stop the head from regrowing. This was a slight on his honor, and Hydra would have his revenge. The snake rushed forward toward Naruto. Naruto threw more kunai, but this time at the ground. As Hydra rolled over them, Naruto raised a finger, but that finger was not for ninjutsu. The paper bombs attached to the kunai all exploded at once under Hydra's belly. The beast roared in pain and fell to the side, disoriented. Naruto saw his chance. He rushed through as fast as he could and managed to cut off 3 more heads before Hydra was able to be brought back to his senses. Hydra retreated. Realizing that he was now down to 3 heads, he began to grow worried. "He's every bit the son of Minato Namikaze," he said as he gazed toward the snake sage. She gave him a judgmental stare as to say, "If you try to surrender to save your own life, I'll kill you myself." Hydra looked down and saw Naruto coming toward him slowly. Hydra was shaking in intimidation. "How is this the same boy I fought only days ago?" Hydra's faces began to snarl in anger as he approached Naruto once again. Naruto formed a Rasengan in his hand and then supersized it. He smashed it into Hydra before taking advantage of his window of opportunity to cut off 2 more heads. Hydra was now no more than a simple snake with but 1 head. He had a multitude of appendages attached, but beyond that, he was just as mortal as anyone else.
You know, you're not as scary as I thought you were. You're a big snake, sure, but that's really all you are. And now that I know how to handle you, you're reduced to nothing. Cut off one head and two take its place. That's how the legend goes. Then so be it. I'll cut off 2 heads. 3 even. I'll cut off as many as I have to. He stops and looks at him for a second. Pointing his katana at the snake, Naruto speaks. I offer you one chance at mercy, Hydra. Leave this mountain now and never show your face around me again and I'll spare you. Hydra growled. To be spared by a human is a fate worse than death. Hydra had only one last chance to do this. This was sudden death. He smiled. Did you like the taste of my venom, child? You tasted the death of your father. Now suffer it! Hydra rushed forward, his mouth open, ready to bite. Hydra's tail came around and smacked Naruto, knocking him away. His katana flew from his hand and landed some distance away. Hydra capitalized on the moment. Before Naruto could escape, he lifted Naruto up into the air and swallowed him whole. No, Shima shouted as she watched her son get eaten. Hydra laughed. I've done it. I destroyed your greatest champion, your child of prophecy, and now you bow to the snakes. The rest of the snakes cheered him on. At about that moment, there was a thunderclap as Naruto appeared by a tree. He collected one of the kunai he had thrown earlier, his father's. Covering it in chakra, he launched off of the tree just as Hydra was turning around. With his father's kunai, he lopped off the final head. It fell to the ground. Naruto looked up at the snake sage. I conquered your greatest adversary. Any one of you, or even all of you, would not be as hard as that. Surrender and you will live. The snake sage smirked. All of us, you say? Then how about that? Snakes, kill him! Before she could say anything more, Naruto lunged forward and decapitated her too, her fate being shared the same as Hydra. He looked at the other snakes and spoke. Your queen is dead. Your fate is yours. Surrender. The snakes all began to display fealty toward Naruto. Naruto, turning back to the toads, saw Fukasaku and Shima running toward him. He would rush to them and give them a big hug. See, I told you I'd come back. I never doubted you, Naruto. I never doubted, Shima said. Naruto knew she was lying, but then again, he had doubted too. Your father and Jiraiya would be so proud of you, Naruto, Fukasaku said. Gamamaru then came up to him. I'm sorry I doubted you, Naruto. I just couldn't lose another son. But now I feel that Minato can rest easy, knowing you fulfilled the prophecy. And with that, Naruto went home. He would eventually bring Hinata to Mount Myoboku to meet Fukasaku and Shima. From there, their relationship began to grow, and Naruto, despite being a different man than he once was, returned to his old playful lifestyle with Gamakichi and Gamatatsu, who were glad to have both him and their father Gamabunta back on the mountain. Naruto, having saved humanity and the toads from extinction, became a hero of renown, known near and far by as many as would speak of the war. He would help to rebuild Konoha in the place it once had been, and would even be named the next Hokage in honor of his father, as well as in honor of his efforts that had brought peace to the world. Eventually, he would even marry Hinata, the woman he had grown to love. But as Naruto lived his happily ever after, above the village, a man in white hovered. Sages, he said. Toad sages, snake sages, slug sages. Everywhere you turn, there are offshoots. That's because of Hagoromo, the other said. He was the one that started showing people how to harness the energies of nature. But he didn't teach them everything. They only harvest energy from one part of nature. They don't think as highly as we do. They're just humans and animals. You can't expect them to know how to look past their tiny blue marble. The universe is full of energy, and it's for those who are worthy to claim it. And we, the Otsutsuki, the true sages of the Six Paths, will teach them how cruel nature can truly be. And that's where I'm going to call it for the day. This is technically the end of the series, though I did leave it open for there to be a 4th part. But you know what you got to do if you want that next part, right? Let us know about it. Leave a comment, share with your friends, and smash that like button. If this series gets enough positive feedback, we might just continue the story from where we left off. But that's only if it's popular enough. So be sure to subscribe and ring that bell too, so you can be notified if we ever do make this extra episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. Until next time, peace out.